Sometimes it's not what you're doing that drains you. It's who you're with. You feel it in your body, in your soul. That strange kind of tiredness that hits after certain conversations. The urge to go quiet when being together was supposed to feel light. The anxiety that creeps in before replying to a message that shouldn't feel so heavy. Not every friendship is a safe place. Some become expectations disguised as care. People who take more than they give. Connections that feed on your effort, but never return it with real presence. And the hardest part to admit is, sometimes these are people you love. People who were there in important moments, who were part of beautiful chapters in your life. But now, they wear you down. Keep you on edge. Make you feel small in your own skin. You keep trying, out of loyalty, out of fear of seeming ungrateful, because of that voice that says, "But you've been through so much together." But a beautiful history doesn't make up for a heavy presence. You don't need to burn out just to prove you care. It's hard to admit that someone who once felt like home now feels like noise. But growing up sometimes means realizing that growing apart is a form of self-respect. And no, that's not selfishness. That's clarity. That's the start of a quiet kind of courage that says, I deserve relationships where I don't have to explain myself all the time, where I can just exist without feeling drained. Some hangouts seem light, but they come at a cost. You show up with an open heart, hoping to share a piece of yourself, and leave feeling like something's been drained. A dull headache, an emptiness in your chest, a kind of exhaustion that doesn't match what was supposed to be a simple connection, and you start to wonder, is it me? Am I being too much? Too impatient? Too sensitive? But deep down, you know there's a difference between being with someone and putting up with someone. You know when a conversation is full of interruptions, subtle jabs, quiet judgment. You know that even when you smiled, you felt like you were being silently picked apart the whole time. It's the kind of exhaustion that doesn't yell, but lingers. In the hesitation before you text them again. In the quiet relief when plans get canceled. In the irritation you can't explain after the conversation ends. And even though you feel it all, you still try. Because you've been friends for years. Because no one's perfect. Because maybe I'm just being too sensitive. But what if the issue isn't your sensitivity? What if it's the lack of mutual care? Healthy relationships don't leave you feeling smaller. They don't make you feel like you're too much or not enough. They don't turn your presence into a chore. You have the right to choose who gets access to your time, your energy, your quiet. And more than that, you have the right to say no to what drains you, even when it's wrapped in the disguise of affection. Feeling worse after being with someone isn't just a phase. It's a sign, and maybe it's time to start listening to what your body and your peace are trying to tell you. It feels strange to distance yourself from someone who once felt like home. Someone who listened to you at 2 a.m., who laughed with you when nothing made sense, who held your hand when the world was falling apart. How do you let go of someone who, at one point, saved you? The truth is, there's a kind of guilt that lives deep inside. The guilt of changing, of growing, of realizing that some connections didn't evolve with you, of understanding that certain people are still attached to a version of you that no longer exists. And, no matter how beautiful the memories are, they can't be the only thing keeping you there. Because love that once was shouldn't become a prison. It can be honored, but it doesn't need to be carried like a debt. You don't owe your peace in exchange for gratitude. Still, it hurts. It hurts to realize that person now brings more discomfort than comfort. That conversations feel more like competition than support, more judgment than listening, more pressure than care. And then comes the guilt. for not being able to keep it going, for not wanting it like you used to, for slowly pulling away without knowing how to say it out loud. But maybe you don't have to say anything. Maybe growing apart is its own kind of language, a quiet way of closing chapters without burning pages. You have the right to move forward, even if the love is still there. You have the right to protect your emotional health without feeling like a bad person. You have the right to choose who stays, based on who they are now, not just who they were. Not every bond needs to turn into a knot. Some can simply loosen, gently, over time. Have you ever caught yourself avoiding conflict, even when you knew you were right? Held back an opinion just to keep things smooth? Smiled on the outside while deep down, you just wanted to leave? Sometimes we confuse peace with silence. We start believing that keeping the vibe light matters more than being real. And slowly, without noticing, we begin to shrink, to mold ourselves, to adjust to others' boundaries, while forgetting our own. Over time, you become an expert at pleasing, at saying what you don't mean, at agreeing to things you never wanted, just to keep the friendship, just to avoid tension, just to not be labeled as too sensitive. But the cost comes later. It shows up in that lingering discomfort, in the feeling that you don't fully belong, in the swallowed anger that turns into quiet exhaustion. A relationship where only one person keeps. Bending isn't a bond, it's a slow sacrifice, and it's not fair. It's not fair that you have to shrink yourself to be kept around, that you have to walk on eggshells in a friendship that should feel like home, that you're only accepted when you're easy, light, agreeable, all the time. Being your full self shouldn't be a threat. It should be welcomed. And if your presence only feels okay when it's edited, maybe the issue isn't your intensity, but the lack of space being offered to you. You don't need to make yourself smaller to keep anyone. The ones who truly want to stay, they'll learn to hear your no too. They'll make room for your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Because peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the presence of respect, and you deserve to feel respected. Even when you disagree, even when you change, even when you're not easy to please. There comes a moment when your body speaks before your mind understands. You come home after being with someone and all you want is to collapse on the couch. Lights off, no words, just quiet. Not because your day was hard, but because being around them was. You start to notice the signs, but still, you doubt yourself. Am I overreacting? Am I becoming too picky? And then come the most convincing lies. But they care about me. They're not a bad person. They just have a tough personality. But liking you isn't enough. Love that drains you can also harm you. You can love someone and still need space. You can appreciate everything you've shared and still decide not to keep going. Because emotional exhaustion is not ingratitude. It's your body letting you know something's gotten too heavy to carry in silence. Some friendships aren't toxic, just unbalanced. You give too much. You listen too much. You hold it all together, and when it's your turn to need something, there's barely anything there. And no matter how hard you try to shift things, the scale never balances. You have every right to want relationships that fill you, not ones that drain you. To rest without guilt, to walk away without drama, to win. Slow down, to change direction. That's not coldness, that's growth. Protecting your own energy is an act of self-respect, because if you keep pouring yourself into what only empties you, you'll end up with nothing left, not even for the people who matter most. You don't have to carry it all, not everyone, not always. Saying enough can be a form of love too. This time, just pointed back toward yourself. Some relationships don't end in arguments. They end in silence, in replies that take longer, in plans that stop being a priority, in hearts slowly pulling back until the love has no room left to breathe. And that's okay. Not every goodbye needs to be spoken. Not every distance means a rupture. Sometimes, it's just your body choosing where it feels safe, your soul choosing where it still has space to grow. You don't need to wait until it hurts too much to take a step back. You don't owe long explanations for why you're pulling away. Some relationships explain themselves by how you feel after being with them, lighter or more exhausted. And if they leave you drained, maybe it's time to walk away. You can leave quietly, with respect, without guilt, without anger, without needing the other person to understand, because the understanding you need most is your own. You deserve connections that nourish you, that give you space to breathe, to be, to rest, even inside a conversation. And if that feels rare, remember, it's not about how many people are around you. It's about how present they truly are. May you learn to recognize when a connection is asking more than you can or want to give. And may you have the courage to protect your peace, even when that means stepping away from someone who once felt like home. Because sometimes, the greatest act of love is knowing when to leave, so you can finally return to yourself. If something in this spoke to you, maybe it's time to look at who you've become with a little more softness. Subscribe to keep this quiet conversation alive between you and the part of you that's ready to be heard.